as the country develops, their economic and social aspects. Therefore, they focused on the relationship between birth rates, death rates, and population growth. Friends, and as we understand, is that this demographic transition theory, it suggests that all countries pass through stages of population transition. From birth rates and death rates to lower birth rates and lower death rates. In other words, this demographic transition theory says that all societies, all countries, they pass through certain stages of population transition. Invariably, this theory believes and advocates is that all societies, they transforms from high birth high death rates to low birth and low death rates. So this is the transformation that occurs in all societies due to the changes in the social and economic aspects of the respected country and societies. So this theory is closely linked to urbanization, industrialization, education, healthcare development. And basically, what it tries to argue is that whenever there is a change in the industrialization process, whenever there is a change in the development urbanization process, and whenever there is a change in the education aspects, and also improvement in the healthcare aspect, there is a change in the population growth and its structure. So therefore this theory is closely linked to the aspects of industrialization, urbanization, and education and healthcare development. So friends, so what I'm here indicating is that this demographic transition theory is in a way, it is in a way linked to the aspects of economy and aspects of social structure of the society. And therefore this theory believes that all societies, they pass through certain stages of population transition. They from high birth high death rates to low birth and low death rates. So now let us try to understand what are the stages that have been advocated by demographic transition theory. So it has 5 stages. The first stage is called the high stationary stage. The first stage is called the high stationary stage. So the generally in this high stationary stage, and it has high birth rates and it has high death rates also. And that since there is a high birth rate and high death rate, there is a invariably there is a low population growth in particular trend. So the reasons for this is, according to the demographic transition theory, is that it is because it has lack of medical facilities. Since it has lack of medical facilities, there is a high death rates, right? And since there is also no knowledge of population planning and family planning, there is a high tendency of population high death rates, birth rates. Since there is a lack of medical facilities, there is a high death rates. So therefore, since the birth rate is high and death rate is also high, therefore there is a tendency of developing the low population growth in that particular phase of population transition, right? So generally these features existed in pre-industrial societies. These features existed in pre-industrial society. And the next stage is called early expanding stage. Early expanding stage. So in this early expanding stage, the characteristics are high birth rate, the rapid decline in death rate, the population explosion. These are the basic characteristics that have been experienced by this stage 2 called early expanding stage. The reasons for why there is a high birth rate and why there is a decline in the death rate is because that there is an improvement in healthcare facilities. So there is a better food supply because of the industrialization, because of the changes in economic structure. So there is a better food supply. There is an innovations and discoveries in agriculture, and there is an availability of food to everyone. So there is a that tendency leads to the rapid decline in death rates. Okay, therefore this stage is like is characterized by population explosion, because high birth rate is there but low death rate is there, right? Since there is a high birth rate, there is a low death rate, invariably it leads to population growth. So this phase is called the population explosion. This phase is called the population explosion. Therefore this stage 2 is called early expanding stage. Early expanding stage. So many developing countries have experienced of this the phenomenon, because there is a change in the healthcare facilities and improvement in healthcare availability, and there is a better food supply, and also there is an improvement in sanitation facilities. So all this the reasons have given the rise to the high birth rates, and also at the same time there is a rapid decline in death rate. So this phase is experienced and characterized with the characteristic of population explosion. So therefore this stage is called early expanding stage. Early expanding stage. And the next stage is called the late expanding stage. The late expanding stage. So what are the characteristics of this particular phase of late expanding stage? So in this late expanding stage, the characteristics are, generally this stage has declining in birth rate, the low death rate also, and slowing population growth. And it is primarily because that the educational policies, especially for women, and the family planning practices, and the urbanization, etc., etc. Generally this phase can be attributed to the Indian society, because if you see that there is a decline in birth rate, because though there is a decline in birth rate, and why there is a decline in birth rate, and as we have seen that the government of India, particularly from 1980s onwards, they advocated a lot of family planning practices, because they thought that the population in India is rising, right? So there is a they thought that for family planning practices, there is a need to control the population growth. Friends, as just to bring to your kind notice is that in 2023, right, the Indian population surpassed China population, I think with 1.44 billion, right? So now which is accounting around 17 to 18% of world population. Now though India is practicing family planning practices, that even though the family planning thing, there is also declining in death rate and birth rate also. However, it is also leading to population growth. It is also leading to population growth. So now there is a tendency of there is a, compared to 1970s and 1980s onwards. Suppose if you compare this decadal census, right, there is a slowing down of population growth, because it is because that the government of India is now implementing a lot of policies to educate women, to raise children, and to give line spacing period between two childbirths. And also they are also trying to promote that two children is enough, not three children, because they are educating the rural masses as well as the educated the urban elite, that just to promote this kind of understanding, to saying that the less children matters a lot, to control the population growth. So all this education plays an important role. The urbanization plays an important role. And friends, that's as regards the urbanization is concerned. and with the increase in urbanization process and urban development, there is a lot of the people from the rural areas, they have been migrating to urban areas in search of livelihood, decent dignity of life, and could be education, could be employment, and could be even other cultural reasons. Now once they step into the urban environment, and it is very difficult for them to maintain a larger families. Now this consciousness is also increasing among the educated youth of this country. Now they are now maintaining either one children or two children, so maximum. So now they are also developing their families into a nuclear pattern, right? The nuclear families are also increasing, rather than joint families, that actually exist in rural areas. So this to just to maintain the just to maintain the family, in terms of economy, it is very difficult for them to run a family. So therefore this consciousness, and which is actually being given by the education setup, this consciousness is now increasing among the educated youth, saying that this maintaining the small family is much beneficial than maintaining a large family. So so all these factors are actually helping and leading to decline the birth rate of this country. And also there is also, if we observe, that there is also decline in the death rates. There is also decline in death rates also. So why there is a decline in the death rates? It's primarily because is that there is an improvement in healthcare access. The government of India, and of course respected respective state governments across India, they have been launching various healthcare programs, and healthcare you know um, interventions to improve the healthcare status of the people. So this also is now leading to slowing down the death rates, or lowering down the death rates. So all these factors are leading to slowing the population growth of the country, slowing the population growth of the country. And particularly, and if we think that India is now in this third phase of demographic transition theory, and that is third stage is called late expanding stage. The third stage is called late expanding stage, and now India is now experiencing, India and other countries such as Brazil and so on. So now they are in this they are in this stage to to decline their population death rate, also to lower down the death rate. So these the factors are now slowing population growth. That's slowing the population growth. So so this is the third stage of demographic transition theory. And now, friends, and we have the fourth stage, that is called low stationary stage. Low stationary stage. This is called the fourth stage. And in this low stationary stage, the characteristics that associate with this low stationary stage is that it has low birth rates as well as low death rates. Low birth rates and as well as low death rates. So these two factors leads to stable the population growth. These two factors leads to stable the population growth. Uh, so what are the basic reasons for this? The basic reasons for this is that there is an high standard of living, and there is also in increasing in healthcare facilities. And also if we observe among the the youth of those particular countries, there is a tendency of developing the career oriented lifestyles, right? So so all these factors now are leading to the lower down the birth rates as well as the lower down the death rates. Generally we observe these characteristics in countries such as USA and UK and France, other developed nations. So this fourth stage is particularly very important because they have lowered down their low birth rates as well as they have lowered down their death rates. So since these two characteristics, the low as well as the low, there is a low birth rate as well as the low death rates. So these two categories stable the population, because there is no increase in population growth and there is no decrease in population growth. There is a some sort of stable, they stable their population growth with their healthcare policies and advanced healthcare conditions, as well as the high standard of living, and also there is also an increasing in career oriented lifestyles, and so on and so forth. So generally this stage 4 category, which is called low stationary stage, we observe in the countries, developed nations, such as USA, UK, and France. USA, UK, and France. And friends, and we have the stage. Another stage is called the declining stage. So this is again the fifth and final stage, and where, according to the demographic transition theory, the fifth stage is called the declining stage. The fifth stage is called the declining stage. So in this stage, and is characterized by very low birth rates, as well as the death rate exceeds the birth rates. Therefore, there is a more chances for population decline. There is a more chances for population decline. So generally, the countries such as Japan, Germany, they are into this phase because they have very low birth rates, and also the death rate also exceeds the birth rate. Therefore, there is a lot of population decline. You know, generally, this population in these countries such as Japan and Germany, now they are now planning to increase their population, because with their population policies, they could able to decline their population, and which is very very low birth rates. And also there is also death rates also very very, and it's very minimal. you know as you know, as a result, what happens is that there is a decline in population growth, because there is, you know so as a result, now those countries now are experiencing the population decline in their countries. Now they're planning to increase their population with their own population policies. Friends, what I'm trying to indicate here is that there is this demographic transition theory is basically tries to explain that there are different stages of population growth, and there is a transition. Um, Particularly, it says that the high stationary stage, and the second stage is called the early expanding stage, and third stage is called the late expanding stage, and fourth stage is called the low stationary stage, and fifth stage is called the declining stage. So all the stages one can observe is that there is a change in population growth, right? That could be because of the social and economic policies. It is because of there is a increase in healthcare access, the change in urban mode of life, there is a change in industrialization, there is a change in economic policies, and all these policies and the factors are leading to affect the population growth of those particular countries. So generally, uh, 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 generally, this demographic transition theory, the basic importance of this demographic transition theory is that it certainly helps us to understand population growth and its trends, and it is very very useful for policy planning, such as health, education and employment, economy, so on and so forth. It explains the links between development and population change, and it tries to puts a link between the development and population changes of the given society. So, friends, however, though it has its own the importance of in its own way, but however, it also has the criticisms. The demographic transition theory has its own criticisms. Basically, it is basically is that the authors of this demographic transition theory, the Thompson as well as an Nordstein, and they particularly focused on the the Western countries. Generally this sort of explanation is very much useful to depict and explain the population growth and its explosion and the decline in Western countries, because all these factors, whatever they have explained, generally those are applicable to developed countries, particularly the Western countries experience. However, this sort of explanation, it may not be possible to apply universally for other countries. So it generally, and it also ignores the cultural and political factors that are affecting the population policies and growth of the given society. So and in other words, some countries, they're not necessarily to follow all these five stages which is being proposed by Thompson and Nonston. So therefore the criticism is that this theory is basically depended on mainly on Western countries' experience, and it is not universally applicable, and it ignores cultural and political factors, and it generally, not all countries are not necessarily to follow the stages which is being proposed by this demographic for transition theory. So, friends, and as regards to, suppose if we apply to Indian context, this demographic transition theory, suppose if we fit to Indian context, we can observe is that India is now in the third stage of demographic transition theory, which is called late expanding stage, right? So where we experience is that there is a decline in birth rate, but still higher than the developed countries, there is no doubt about it. And there is also the death rate is low due to improved healthcare facilities, and these two factors are leading to population growth. However, it is slowed down compared to earlier decades. Now India, though it has a population growth, but it is slowing its population growth rate compared to earlier decades. However, though the government of India is now implementing a lot of population policies, family planning, and population education, and and how to maintain the I mean how to use preventive checks, and so on and so forth. But however, despite all this, there is a population growth. There is no doubt, because recently, if we observe in 2023, the India surpassed its the China in terms of population growth, and now it is now contributing to more than 18% of the total world population. I think which is of course a serious concern. There is no doubt. However, if we the use those population in a positive way, I'm sure India could able to achieve growth rapidly. And there is also the the youth population is also the good thing is about Indian population growth is that it has its more youth population. I think suppose if we use those man force in a very productive way, I think we can reap the benefits of demographic dividend. It's sort of a window kind of a opportunity for Indian policymakers to improve its economy, to improve its the education facilities, and to put one the India on the global stage, to put India on the global stage. So, friends, and I think this demographic transition theory is in a way, it helps to understand the population growth and population changes in a given society. Friends, so with these notes, what I'm trying to say is that, okay, the demographic transition theory certainly helpful for policymakers to design the economic development of the country, to design education policies for the country, to also design the employment policies of the country, and where this demographic transition theory, in a way, it helps to predict, the the positive and negative sides of the population growth. It also able to predict that what will happen if there is a more population growth, and it can also be able to predict and explain what happens if there is a less population growth, and it also able to explain what will happen when there is a stable growth of population in a given society. I think though it has its own criticisms, the I mean the demographic transition theory, in a way, it tries to explain the basic crux of the changes and transformatory phases of population growth from one stage to another. I think this demographic transition theory is certainly helpful to explain the population, and the credit goes to the two famous authors, the Thomson and von Ornstein, and who have developed an extremely important exercise to explain demographic transition theory. And with this, what I'll do, and I mean, I shall be able to end this notes on demographic transition theory. And and the next in the next part of this class, we'll try to understand what is optimum population theory. What is optimum population theory? Friends, as you all know that this optimum population theory, it explains the ideal size of population for a country where maximum economic welfare per capita income is achieved. In other words, it explains what sort of ideal size should be there. The optimum means what is an ideal size of a population. So it tries to explain, so what happens if you have an ideal size of the population, so that you can increase the economic growth of the country. So this optimum population is a very important population theory, which is actually contributed by Edwin Cannon, and who is a main proponent of this theory. And of course, later it was later supported by economists like Robbins and Sanders. And to expand the notion of this optimum population theory, to explain how how much population is too much and how much is too little, right? And what is the best population size? These are the basic questions that have been proposed by this optimum population theory, and where it explains the ideal size of population, where it explains the ideal size of the population, and where it tries to explain how to reap the benefits or increase the benefits of economic welfare to increase the betterment of the society. So in other words, it tries to pose questions, is that how much the population should be there, and how little the population should be there, and what is the best population size of the given society. And friends, what is the meaning of optimum population? The meaning of optimum population means that, to put it in a layman sense, is that the optimum population means population that maximizes the per capita income. Population that maximizes the population income is called the optimum population. So, in other words, if population is less than optimum, what happens is that the resources are underutilized. If there is a less population, invariably, this theory believes that there is an underutilization of the resources of the country. Suppose if there is a population is more than optimum, so what happens? The resources are overused, and also those resources are unevenly distributed, and where it leads to the class inequalities between different sections of the society, right? So therefore, this optimum population theory we tries to explain is that the population that maximizes the per capita income resources. If there is a more population, to the optimum level, the resources are overused. If there is a less optimum, that phase is leads to the resources underutilized in a given society. So there is a point where output per person is highest. You know, this is called optimum level of population. Where there is a if there is a output per person is highest, okay, that stage is called the optimum level of population. That stage is called the optimum level of population. At different points of population levels, and if we can observe that underpopulation and we have low output, you know, and if there is a optimum population, maximum output per person, and there is an overpopulation, this is falling output per person, you know. So this is the basic points which have been raised by this optimum theory, population theory. The basic assumptions of this theory is that the resources are fixed, okay, that the technology remains constant, the working population ratio also remains stable. So therefore, there is no change in capital and organization. Okay, and the basic features of this theory is that it focuses on economic welfare, and it uses the per capita income as an indicator to explain the optimum size of the population, right? And it also argues that there is a need to balance between the population and resources. Okay, there is a need to balance between the population and resources. And if there is an underpopulation, right, generally the in underpopulation the characteristics are like the population is less than optimum, the resources are not fully used in the underpopulation because there is no substantial population, and there is also labor shortage. Now if you observe is that some parts of Canada and Australia now they are experiencing the labor shortage. They are also since they have huge resources and those resources are not fully utilized and consumed. It's because that the population is less than the optimum in those countries. In those countries, suppose if there is a optimum population, right? If there is an optimum population, there can be the best use of resources, and where it can also leads to increase and maximize per capita income of the people, and where it also leads to provide the high standard of living for all sections of the society. And the other stage is called the overpopulation stage. The characteristics of this overpopulation are like I mean the population exceeds the optimum level, and there is also pressure on resources, and it also leads to the lower per capita income. And India, of course, faces this sort of a challenge, because we have overpopulation. As you all know that, since we have overpopulation, the resources are limited. The resources cannot be distributed equally and with the equitable, juncture to all sections of society, right? So as a result, what happens is that there is a pressure on the resources, and where it leads to the class divisions and class inequalities between different strata of society, where it leads to the low per capita income of the country. So generally, this overpopulation puts a lot of pressure on the resources, because this population exceeds the optimum level. The population exceeds the optimum level. Friends, so what is the importance of this theory? The importance of this theory is that it helps in economic planning, and it also guides population policies, and it explains the relationship between population and development. So these are the basic importance of this, the optimum theory of population. So Though it has its own importance in trying to explain economic planning, population policies, and population and development of a country, it has criticism also. The basic criticism of optimum population theory is that it's difficult to measure optimum level. Because what is an optimum level, it is very difficult to measure, because each country has its own different resources, and also they have their own levels to check their population growth. So therefore it is very difficult to measure the optimum level of the population in a given society. And it also ignores the technological changes, because there is a technology that is now occurring, because the optimum level may not be now apply, though this theory advocates for optimum level. But though, for example, India has the overpopulation. Though it has a overpopulation, the most of the population are now are migrating to other parts of the world in search of employment and education. And as a result, what is happening is that this overpopulation now is being added to other parts of the world. So it's because that there is a change in the technological changes, and this also technological changes also increasing its advancing the equity as well as the economic progress of the country. So therefore somewhere it ignores the technological part of the society, where it affects the population growth. And it also focuses only on economic aspects, where it does not consider social and political factors. And it assumes that the resources are fixed. So there is a criticism to this theory, says that this theory assumes that resources are fixed. However, the criticisms are saying that resources are not fixed, because those are not realistic, because the resources are abundant on this planet, where it cannot be puts an equal, I mean the universal formula to all societies, all countries in the world, explaining the same framework, and applies the same framework to all societies in the world. So and how we can relevant relate to India. The relevance to India is that India is often considered, as we discussed, is that India is often considered as overpopulated in this framework. However, the large labor force also leads to an opportunity, and where it needs proper resource management and employment generation. Therefore, friends, the optimum theory population highlights the importance of maintaining a balance between population and resources. While useful, it is not absolute, and it must be understood along with modern factors like technology and globalization. So, friends, with this note, I'll end class here. So, in this class, we discussed about we discussed about the optimum population theory. We also discussed demographic transition theory, and in the next class, we'll be discussing more such theories to expand and enlarge our understanding about the population growth and its distribution. Now, I'll end this class. I hope you all enjoyed. Have a good day. Thank you.